don't know about you, but oftentimes when I hear people talk about boundaries and cutting back on work hours and all of that beautiful sounding work-life balance stuff, I assume the person preaching this has already reached a certain point of quote-unquote success. I think to myself, well, of course you can cut back on your work hours now. You just said how you worked like crazy for 5 years, grew your business, and then realized you needed to pull back. You already have the audience you need. Of course you can slow down. Could they really do that had they not first grown the business? In other words, I make up excuses for why I clearly still need to push, and grow. And then maybe one day it will be time to find better balance. After I get to that certain audience size, after I reach whatever other metric. And if you've been listening to this podcast for even just an episode or two, I imagine you know where this is going already. Because the guests I have join us here on the Maker's Playbook tend to debunk whatever excuses we, or let's be honest, me, whatever excuses I'm telling myself for why I can't do something. And if Lisa and David Dault can ruthlessly choose to eliminate hurry and hustle from their business and lives while stepping into both being full-time in their pottery business while also taking care of and homeschooling their 5 girls. Well, I think my excuses have been thrown out the window, haven't they? Oh, and also, David built a pottery wheel out of a treadmill. Yeah, a treadmill, my friends. Stay tuned because there are so many great stories in this episode. There's so much fun, in fact, that this is only part 1 of my conversation with Lisa and David Dault, and we're going to get all into it right after a quick word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Kara, content creator and Facebook wrangler for Amico Brent, bringing you ideas and support for your creative adventures every day. This week's episode is brought to you by Amico Brent. Find your favorite Amico glaze at your local distributor. Happy glazing!
Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Maker's Playbook, the show where we talk all about what it's really like to make a living from the things you make. I'm your host, seasoned entrepreneur of 13 years, Rebecca Ikes-Kara. I think I should just let you guys do the intro.
Small Business Mission Log, Day 38.
Yes, we're David and Lisa Dault of Dault Pottery, and we started pottery about 9 years ago.
About 9 years.
So about 9 years ago, we started making, I was going crazy. David was working a lot. We had one car. I was stuck at home with the kids all day. Yep. And he's like, you need to be making art. I was an art major in college, but I emphasized in sculpture, not pottery. I had taken one ceramics course and it was awful. Like, I stunk so bad at it. Then I was like, well, at least I'm not a potter. He had taken it in high school and loved it, really connected to his high school ceramics teacher and really connected to the class and the medium. So anyways, he just had this insight that I needed to be making art while I was mothering. And so he went on Craigslist and found me a kiln and he bought, 25 pounds of clay?
Wait, hold on. How come you decided to buy pottery stuff then?
Sculpting.
So
okay.
Yeah. So, okay, we'll dial back.
You didn't buy the wheel first. You just bought a kiln.
No.
Okay.
She was knitting. And she was knitting. And Lisa, if you know Lisa, she wants like the organic, free range, like wool that costs about $30 a skein, $1,000.
And
so
lasts forever.
So she's knitting like a little baby vest and it's like $50 worth of yarn. And she spent 50 hours. And then she's like, well, maybe I could just sell it and make some money. I'm like, sell it for like $5,000 because that's what it would take to turn a profit. Let's do something else. And she had done some clay sculpting in college that was magnificent. Busts of her grandmother and things like that. So I said, you need to try that, do that.
So he got me the clay off Amazon. He bought like 25 pounds on Amazon.
Was a thing, yeah.
Because that's the only place we could find clay. And then I started sculpting him, and he was the world's worst model. Like, he would sit, he wouldn't take it seriously.
A little fidgety.
But he would flex. Did he flex? Or what?
I tried. She kept getting the muscles wrong, but...
So I put his head in a plastic bag and chucked it out the back door. So people
metaphorically here, people metaphorically.
Yeah.
And actually,
but it looked pretty realistic.
It looked enough like him that people were disturbed when they walked up to the garage. So.
I didn't complain about taking out the trash for a while because it just served as a reminder. I don't know.
Anyways, we both we were both in this stage of life where it was more, we wanted something more practical or more functional, not art in a sense.
A big bust of each other sitting on our mantle.
We didn't see where that could go. I wasn't interested in becoming a portrait sculptor. So I just I wasn't interested in wasting time.
It's not a waste of time, though. For those who find joy in it.
For me, it was
okay. I just offended the couple portrait sculptors out there. Okay.
Anyways.
Wow.
I can't tell this.
I get it. The audience for functional work is easier for you guys to connect to than a collector.
Yeah, we started a family, had a couple kids at that point, and we're both, we want to make stuff that we can enjoy on a day-to-day basis. Functional pottery.
Yep. I started hand building. He started hand building a little bit. We're both horrible at it, naturally, because we'd never done it before.
Didn't have a slab roller.
We didn't expect to be great, but we weren't really satisfied. So we started looking for wheels on Craigslist. Couldn't find anything in our area. It was like a pottery desert.
Yes.
And David one day, I've got an idea. And somebody had given us an old treadmill. And so he went out into the garage one afternoon and turned the treadmill into a pottery wheel in like 2 hours.
Hold up. We're going to need to... How much time did we slate for this? Because I already have a lot of questions. How? Excuse me? Like what? Because you used the...
Well, it has a motor in it. The motor goes this way. All you had to do is change the orientation of the motor.
He makes this sound so easy.
I know.
Change it a little bit. It was not the best. It was a horrible pottery wheel, but it did work. Our whole first show was thrown on a pottery wheel treadmill.
Yeah.
We found very quickly you go to try to center the clay, and I don't got the electronics of it, so it still had like its treadmill, a little display board with the little sliders for speed and stuff. So you'd slide the speed up, to center it, and you'd start to put pressure on it, and it would slow down. But then it would be like, oh, I've got a heavy person on me. I got to speed up, and it would overcompensate.
We were flinging pots
flinging them across
everywhere.
The room, and so you had to learn like push now
stop,
now push
now stop.
Yeah. But we got proficient with it for like 6 months, and our whole first show was thrown on this treadmill.
This is amazing. I think this is officially the first time I have ever heard, people talk about kick wheels. They talk about, like, you can be very low tech, but never would I have guessed pottery treadmill. And also now I'm picturing, like, how people keep notebooks of how much weight certain items they make are and the particular dimensions and all of this stuff. I'm picturing notes that are like set treadmill to high intensity incline at a 30-degree grade.
Yes.
Yes. It was a lot of trial and error. Lots of error, lots of trial.
Yeah. Yep.
But we made enough that first show. We were like, if we can be serious for 6 months with this subpar pottery wheel.
And during this time, I was doing youth ministry. I was leaving for like morning Bible studies at like 5, 6 in the morning.
5 a.m.
We had one car. I was making peanuts doing youth ministry. She was at home with the kids all day long. I'd get home after like the football game because I had to go with kids, and do youth activities and stuff. But we didn't have any money for a pottery wheel. No. We could have maybe bought a new one and had it shipped, and no way. But like, if we could be serious, we can make some money with this first show or two, then we'll, and that'll give us longer. And eventually we found another one on Craigslist with another kiln.
We said if we were serious enough about developing it as a hobby, then it would be worth investing in. Because if it was just kind of a fling, then the treadmill pottery wheel was good enough. But if we wanted to actually make something, then we needed to prove to ourselves that we were invested in it. So we made enough with the first show to buy one that we found in Florida, like a couple hours away from us. We drove a couple hours away, picked up a pottery wheel and another kiln off Craigslist. That's what we've been using for 9 years. Same pottery.
Pacifica wheel, not Nordic track wheel, but Pacifica or whatever.
I mean, I'm kind of sad. I kind of want, I'm like, the Instagram possibilities of a Nordic track wheel are just.
I remember dragging it to the curb at one point, and I was like, this isn't even good enough to like gift to another potter, the old potter. But thankfully, we have some pictures like from like throwing in our kitchen on this thing, and we were proudish of it.
Yeah. Oh, I was so impressed. I was like, David he blew me away. It was amazing.
I was going to be an engineer in another life. So I get
clearly
that comes out at times where I get to, problem solve. That's what small business and that's what pottery is, problem solving.
Yep.
You have learned that very quickly, considering you're all of like a month into both of you being full-time now. Spoiler alert to anybody who isn't following you on Instagram. But also, I mean, how many times do we come up with a story of why something won't work, right? Like, oh, I don't have enough space. Oh, I don't have this. Oh, I don't have. Because we're comparing to people who are maybe 10 years down the road from us or, whatever, had access to different resources. Whereas like you made a wheel with a Nordic track and I love it. Or even like for somebody who's not as electronically comfortable, kick wheels are not like, that's not a crazy thing. Like when I first got into pottery over a decade ago, the place I was working in England that we worked with at-risk kids, we had a pottery wheel that was bike powered because we would go into the streets. We would go into the streets of the neighborhood and with this bike, with this wheel attached to the back. And then you'd like prop it up on a stationary thing because then the kids would have to ride the bike to let another kid do the wheel. And so it was this fun interactive thing. So like there's options. All that to say.
Yeah.
I think I was considering a kick wheel until I was like, we have an electric motor. It's not your normal electric motor. And if that didn't work, I probably would have tried to make a kick wheel, with like a concrete thing. But that's just a whole lot bigger. And I think I made it for $15. I had just, a garage full of random stuff. I had to buy one metal flange that, to kind of go from the axle of the treadmill to open it up to, I made a wooden,
head.
Like a wooden wheel head. And I think I spent maybe a couple other things. And I think I spent $15 on it.
This is not great for sponsorship goals, but all of our bats we made. We got marine wood. My uncle works at a boat shop. We got marine wood from him and with a jigsaw cut out. And it was funny when we all met in person at NCECA this year. And when Francesca was talking to some people about like, oh, you should tag the products that you use and then that will help with Instagram or whatever. And he was like, but what product? Like, they were like, well, what about the tools that you use? And he lifts up his hands and is like, these? And they're like, well, what about the bats? He's like, nope. Like, we got nothing. We can tag Shimpo and Scott and that's about it. But I do think like there's a common thread with a lot of the people I talk to that are every, whole household is going full time of being willing to troubleshoot and being resourceful and making it work with what you got rather than, because you can kill your profit margin really quickly by buying a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, where to even begin? Because you guys, I mean, part of me was talking about the shift into full time, but now I feel like there's 9 years worth of gems that we're going to miss. And I do, before I get ahead of myself, one brand new thing, and I just have to pull it up here, is that our community members, I'm letting everybody know who I'm interviewing before we interview so that they have an opportunity to be like, okay, this is what we want to hear from Lisa and David. This is what we want to know. And let me tell you, there are plenty of questions.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Oh boy.
So, well, let's dive in a little bit just to give everybody a little bit more of the picture, because we kind of loosely referenced where you're at or driving to go get wheels and things like that. So tell everybody kind of where in the world you are. And I think before we hit record, we alluded to all of the other little humans that might come running in during the recording, because going full time with everything you guys have going on is a totally different reality than Francesco and I going full time.
So yeah, we have 5 kids, ages 13, 11, 8, 4, and 2.
Nice. Nicely done.
No, thank you.
It keeps changing every year. It's like, here we go. But
yeah, you know what, though? I can keep track of that, but I cannot keep track of their birth year. And you've got birth year down.
Together we can
Together,
almost parent.
We can parent.
Our powers unite.
All girls. You didn't say
all
that.
Girls.
They're all girls. So
Five
we've
girls.
got 5 wonderful daughters. We always thought we were going to have a boy, and they all turned out girls.
Yeah.
And then Lisa was like, "We're not going for 6 to get you a boy. Sorry, I'm done."
I'm the one.
No, I want more.
I
I take 100 more.
I'm the one who's like, we feel like this is a good. I feel like this is a good.
I feel like I got fired from my vocation, which was
Her main vocation, which was having kids. Yes.
It's okay.
I mean, one of them's only 2. You still have there's still lots happening.
Oh yes, there's a lot. There's time.
So we'll see. It'll be determined, but we might
Currently 5 at the time of this recording.
Yes.
Currently
Yes.
five.
Yes.
Yeah.
We live in Southwest Ohio. We were in Alabama for a while, and that's where we got our start, and then moved up, and we're living near family now, Southwest Ohio, the Dayton area, and so love it in the Midwest. And there's a lot more pottery culture around here, and other potters that we've gotten to know, and wonderful pottery supply stores, and stuff like that. A bigger network community, so we love that.
Now this makes sense, because when you said so we went to Florida, it's like about a 2-hour drive. I was going, on what map is Florida 2 hours from Ohio?
I wish.
Yeah, we lived in Alabama for 7 years. David was working full time, teaching at a small private school, and was a youth pastor and a soccer coach. We had 3 kids at the time, and I was out making his combined salary of 3 jobs by making pottery in the evenings. Yeah. Now there's 2 things to say there.
Yeah, there's a lot to say there.
He wasn't being paid very much, so
well.
But part of the payment for being in the ministry was housing. So that was a big factor.
We had a free place to live.
We had a free place to live, but our very small income. So I was out making him, and we were kind of like, we're digging down roots. We're putting down roots. We want to do pottery full time, and we're either going to never leave Alabama, or we're going to go and try to make this happen up closer to family. And so we had asked our kids to sacrifice, being near grandparents because of our vocation for a while. We thought this would be a good... we were either going to move now or we were never going to move. And so we decided to move, and David threw a curveball at us
Life threw a curveball.
So we moved in with my parents to transition to finding a house and everything. My mom was going through some really bad health issues, and she was the office manager at my dad's dental office, and she needed a knee replacement. So David's like, I will just be another body in the office to help whatever anybody needs while you're recovering from your knee surgery. So if about a 2-month, he's like, I'll give you 6 weeks, a few months while you recover. And that was
more flexible time to be able to recover properly. Yeah.
And that was 6 years ago in June.
I was basically full time at the dental office.
He was going to go for 6 weeks, and he stayed for 6 years. And it was hard on our marriage because we moved to do pottery. And here we are moving into my parents, and completely he never saw himself working in a dental office as a office manager.
And also working for his in-laws.
If you can do that, and that wasn't the bad.
And live with them for 3 years. For 3 years. And have babies in the house.
I got along with her family better than she did, unfortunately.
Whatever.
But
That's normal. That's normal. Lisa and I just both pick up our mugs yeah.
And on that note, but a few things to say. I try to live without regrets.
What does that mean?
So, 6 years.
David is a walking sign in love it. I love you. I mean that with all love. And I know you're sincere. It's just hilarious.
So
you can't say live, laugh, love during this recording, just so you know.
Yeah. But so those 6 years, I got to be intimately involved in a business and running a business. And we did not, we'd listened to business podcasts. I'd done some business research.
We read a lot of books.
But I'd never run a business. And so, a dental office with 10, now up to 14, 15 employees is far different than, I've read some business, things, regulatory compliance, all kinds of stuff.
Payroll, insurance.
Yeah, I was involved with all of that with this dental office, a small business. And so I got a wonderful business education out of it as well. So
that's huge.
I don't regret the time. And would we have been successful? Well, are we going to be successful in pottery? That's the question to be determined right now. But would we have been successful if we jumped it? We moved up to Ohio, jumped into pottery, and just went for it. Lisa, of course,
we would have been successful.
Yes. And we're 6 years behind where we could have been. For me, I'm like, you know what? We got to help family. That's invaluable.
It's invaluable.
You can't put a price tag on that. And I got a wonderful business education, and it strengthened our resolve to do pottery, right?
And sent us to marriage counseling.
That's a whole nother thing. We did that in advance. We did that in advance of me quitting, because are we going to be able to survive me being at home, all the time and running a business together? I mean, we've been partners in life for 13 years now, but this is a whole nother level of stuff. We actually not in a crisis moment, but to avoid a crisis moment, we signed up for marriage counseling before I actually phased out of my job, which took, 6 years and a year of trying to quit and 20 weeks notice of okay, I'm actually doing this to family and coworkers and whatnot.
David is completely sincere when he says he doesn't regret things. He just wants everybody to be happy. He's such a servant. I think it was hard because he kept choosing other people's happiness over our goals and life dreams. And it was hard not to get resentful because he's 110% in wherever he is. But he finally made that transition, and it literally took him years to quit. Because my dad is 72 and keeps saying he's going to retire, but he's not going to retire. He can do more burpees than I can, and he's 72 years old. So he's not retiring. Can
it be? Can they both be true that it's easiest to disappoint your wife and hardest to disappoint your wife?
Yes.
Because it seems easiest in the moment. So anytime push came to shove, I'd stay after at the office and I'd take care of what needed to be done. And it was a night where we're tonight's going to be a pottery night. Mm-hmm. We'll both be out there working on it. And it's like, hey, dear, you know what? Something came up. If I don't fix this, then
everybody else's life.
But also, it's not just oh, my boss is going to be mad at me. It's if I don't fix this, your dad is going to be mad at me.
No, he had to move out of. David had to move out of the house. He had to. We bought a house almost 3 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah.
And they gave us a loan to do all of the renovation.
Set up the studio, and
David had to pay every single penny off before he could start pottery full time, and before he could quit. He's just that kind of person. And I'm like, they don't care. They literally don't care. And he's like, I care. So, yeah.
Yes.
I get that. And also, when you said about him putting everybody else first and taking care of everybody, I was like, I don't know if you could actually tell over our internet connection, and the dog is now barking in the background, but I was squirming in my seat where if Francesco was in this room, I would be getting some looks right now.
It's always,
this is well, this is the conversation we're having, is that, weddings have been my bread and butter. It has been our primary income as a household for buying a house, for all of these things. But to his credit, it's kind of if you don't just choose to stop it, it's always going to keep coming up and it's always going to keep taking you away. You guys have heard me say the long-term vision is the Maker's Playbook and helping other artists with, and Cara Terra, our ceramic studio. So it's I technically run 4 different businesses, and 2 of those are photography, and those 2 always took priority because those always feel urgent. They feel whatever, the inboxes, blah, blah, blah. And the other 2, Maker's Playbook and Cara Terra, were always getting put on the back burner. I mean, you can see it from our Instagram posts of I started last summer and then it just stopped for 6 months.
Yep. Well, we only have capacity to do so much, and there is no more. It's not like you can just conjure up more capacity,
Oh, I think that I can, though, if I'm just organized enough, Lisa. I think David and I can create 26 hours in a 24-hour day, right?
You know what? I feel so having 5 kids, it is so funny the way we do life. David is a early morning wake up, and he works until he cannot sit up and stay awake at the dinner table. He works so hard. And I'm so he's a sprinter. I'm a marathoner. I know I'm going to be up 3 times during the night. I know that the children are going to have a million crises. I know that I have to get these things done, I'm sleeping in because I know that I have to pace myself. And if I wake up and I'm exhausted, then nothing gets done. And so when he's coming home and he's got this like, professional mental work ethic box and an overworker, he's definitely a workaholic, and he comes into my space, into my studio, into my world, and he's like, why are you still in bed? And I'm like, why are you up? Because you're going to have to take a nap today and drink 4 cups of coffee, but I am not, It's really funny because we have such different styles of doing things, and trying to mesh them together with 5 children running around is quite chaotic and hilarious.
We really are going to have to go out for a very long dinner together because Lisa and Francesco can bond over everything. And David and I can be like, but you guys don't make any sense.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But okay, so there's so much. And I know that I could just bond this whole time. And I'm like, okay, people are actually listening, hopefully, maybe. So tell us, so just so I get the timeline right, you guys moved up to Ohio 6 years ago.
Yep.
And then you moved into your house that you're at now 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then we're like a month and a bit into David quitting, you guys both being full-time.
Yeah.
Amazing. All while growing good humans. Growing. Like they're broccoli, apparently.
Yeah, if only. Well, actually, I'd probably kill them if they were broccoli. I'm a horrible gardener. But one of the things for doing small business, we both love pottery, but I think we're more like small business minded. Like, it doesn't matter what we were doing, we were going to have to run our own business. And so like our first foray into small business was back in Dothan. David was a baker before we got married. And we did a farmer's market stand called Humble Grains. And it was woo-woo. And we did it with a couple students who were, really close to. And it was like the coolest experience ever, having this farmer's market stand, baking together, waking up at like 3:30 in the morning. And Alethea was a couple months, or she was like maybe a year old.
Now 13-year-old.
Or now 13-year-old. And she was like sleeping in a pack and play under the bakery stairs while we were baking bread early in the morning and then walking loaves of bread over to the farmer's market. It was just just so ideal. And it was just such a wonderful pace of life. And I think that's one of the things we're kind of trying to get back to.
I love that you just equated having a newborn and waking up 3:30 in the morning to bake bread with a wonderful pace of life. I just want to.
That's true.
But when you're connected to the work you're doing, it makes, I say that jokingly, but also it didn't sound that weird as you were saying it either. I had this moment where I went, huh.
Okay, now that you're saying it sounds weird, but no, I get that. But one of the reasons we wanted to do pottery, because we were consistent, we were stuck through it with 9 years, 3 babies have been born through this, a move, and we're still making pots, we're still pursuing this thing. One of the big factors of doing small business, though, is homeschooling. We homeschool our girls. David is a natural teacher and patient and kind and all of those good things, nurturing. And I'm like, I've told you how to do this once. Why do you need to be told again? Like, just do it. And so
look through your tears and do the math equation. Come on.
Nobody likes math. Just do it. So him coming home, it's kind of a role reversal in our world anyways, but he's going to take the brunt of nurturing the children because he's better at nurturing.
Homeschooling and doing that.
And I can come out and make lots of pots by myself without hurting anyone. So it's kind of a little bit of a role reversal, but it works out beautifully for us. And with what we want to do, it's like we're not trying to be 2 full-time potters. We're trying to be 1 mega potter combined,
One business. I think it's really smart and probably healthy as a relationship as well. Because what I've learned from colleagues of mine who work with their spouse and partners is to have very distinct roles, is to have like, you are in charge of these things. I am in charge of these things. Like, so we know each other's responsibilities. We're not checking in to say, who's doing this? How come you didn't do that? Yada, yada, yada. I think the colleagues of mine that I admire the most, that I see growing their businesses the fastest, are because they have that balance of skills together. It's basically like instead of one person putting on themselves the expectation that they should be able to be both a brilliant maker, a unique artist, a smart marketer, a salesperson, a customer service. I mean, these are all dramatically different skill sets.
Yes.
You know, and we, for some reason, think that we're supposed to be able to do all of those things. And everybody else on Instagram is clearly doing all of those things as well.
Right. And thriving and not having emotional crises all the time.
I do want to ask, because I am fascinated. You were saying part of what is integral to being a small business was homeschooling, which is fascinating to me. And I realize I don't have kids in this moment, because I kind of think like, wouldn't it be easier to send them to school so you get 8 hours to yourself? So like I mean, I can understand the educational value for a child to like, they can learn math by learning, you can be talking about, I don't know, sales tax or something.
Anything.
There's a million reasons that I think it's brilliant, but for your workload, I'm like, hold on, how does this work?
And that's where it's not the efficient choice to homeschool, but it's one we're dedicated to.
Just like running a business is not the practical choice.
Right.
The practical choice would be for him to continue working at the office, the dental office, which was not his career choice, but he's good at it, and we make a consistent paycheck. That makes sense. Nothing we're choosing to do makes sense, but it is what we feel called to do. And when we think about it, it's like, if we go another 10 years and don't even try to do this, we are going to have regrets.
Maybe then I could get to the point
have
of like,
regret.
I have a regret.
For us, failure is not the worst thing that can happen. Not being able to make this. Not
Say it again.
failure is not the worst thing that can happen. And if the Dault pottery, as a full-time business fizzles out, we are not scared that we will not have the resources or the ability to make enough income, that we have enough food, we can pay our mortgage, that kind of thing, because it's just another lesson we've learned. And it's just something we build upon for the next experience. And so I think for us, homeschooling is important. Being in youth ministry, we've worked a lot with private school, public school, homeschool, all of these different kinds of forms of education. And this is not a critique on any particular. You've got your highs and you got your lows in all areas. But if we could teach our kids anything, we would want them to be kind human beings, and we would want them to be unhurried. And I think there's nothing in our culture that encourages rest and like fulfillment and work and rest. And there's something about this pace of life we're trying to create. Even though up to the outsider it looks chaotic and it doesn't look like the practical choice, we can be very confident in the choices we're making, because we know that what success looks like for us is not necessarily what success looks like for other people.
Yeah. So we're doing small business so that we can kind of bend that around what we want to do as a family and as parents, and our
life.
Our greatest success is not our own success, but our kids, kind of that next generation idea.
Our family.
Our family.
Yeah. The kids are not the center of our universe.
No. But I mean, none of them have to be potters, if we become, a successful pottery business. But we've shown them that you can kind of do anything. If you can quit your day job and do pottery in your garage, and
well, we got to do it first.
Yeah,
you are doing it. It's a present tense, not a future tense, a present tense.
Well, not necessarily that they have to be potters or whatever, but that if they wanted to run their own business, no matter what it was, they would know how, or they would know what it would take. Mm-hmm. And reread a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And that is kind of the mantra in my head all the time. Like, if I'm rushed and I'm hurried and I'm anxious all the time, what is the point? I don't need to live like that. And so but you can't just say, oh, I'm not going to be hurried or anxious. You have to ruthlessly eliminate that pace of life from your lifestyle. And it's very difficult.
What does that look like pragmatically then, in terms of maybe some of the decisions you guys are making, some lifestyle choices, because I'm hearing it, I'm nodding along and I'm like, yes, this is what I want for my life. But then I'm also thinking about
how much work,
being a small business, how much work there, because I have this like built in capitalism of like, oh, well, I need to, look. You create way more content on Instagram than I even do. So I'm like, how are you keeping up with all these things, and you have 5 babies, and I don't post reels that often. I'm like, hold on a second. What I see from the outside is totally the opposite, and I want all the secrets.
Okay, I'll tell you the secret. Well, one thing we do lifestyle way that was a big choice for us was to take a Sabbath or to take a day completely off. Again, doesn't make sense. Why would you lose 24 hours of productivity, or at least, the idea that you could be productive for another work day? But you can't keep giving out of nothing. You can't keep creating out of nothing. You have to be able to enjoy what you're doing, not like everything's lovely all the time. But if you don't have the capacity, like if I get mad at my employees, I'm yelling at my children, this is not ideal, right? So I have to ruthlessly choose things that, don't make sense business-wise, but make sense for our life and what we're trying to accomplish. So for us, we take Sunday completely off from work. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm still a creative. I will want to paint. I love painting. I love making things or, doing things with the girls. I do like knitting still.
And knitting's not bad.
It's a lot right now, but
just wasn't going to be our winning business model.
Yeah, but we're very intentional about that. We're intentional about eating meals together, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner now that he's home, but, dinner when he wasn't. And like we said, we're not trying to be 2 full-time potters. We're trying to be 1 combined mega potter. So, which means we can actually get more done, the 2 of us, than 1 single person could get alone. But that means we're also not bearing the burden of all of it,
Mm-hmm.
And we're also not there yet. As much preparation as partly I was like, I just have to quit my job. I didn't even have a lot to give in terms of planning for pottery. It was more like, no, I just need a clean break. And the mental clarity. My first act as a full-time potter after having, for all intents and purposes, quit my day job, which I still go in a couple hours a week to help with one thing. But it had to be basically a clean break. But my first act was to go on a silence and solitude retreat for several days at a monastery in Kentucky and reset and just cleanse, I need that.
Which was hilarious because I sent him with a list of things like, okay, find our ideal audience, make a business plan, figure out all of our girls' character issues and how to fix them.
Yeah.
And, and how are you going to romance me on top of all of this?
Yes.
Here's the things to figure out while you're at this monastery.
In 1 week.
Yeah, enjoying silence.
No, it was 3 days. It was 3 days. And you get there, and it was so perfect because I got there. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm late because of the traffic, and I'm in a rush. I wanted to make my list of things to do while I'm here and figure out all of life. And the first night, it's a silence and solitude. It's a Trappist monastery. And it's not like a vow of silence, but they're just the less you talk, the better.
Only when absolutely necessary.
Only necessary. And just their rule that they follow is a Benedictine rule where it's just talk less. You'll get in trouble less if
you just talk less.
And so I got there. I was like, I didn't have time to but they had a welcome, just little talk by one of the monks who came in. He's like, okay, you're going to try to figure out all of life. You're going to try to solve all of life's problems. You're going to do all this stuff. That's not what this time is for. This is a retreat. You're here to pray and to think and just to be. And so throw that list away. He's like, the hardest part of monastic life is your thoughts, and just let them run through like a river and don't stop them up, and just be. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's what I needed to hear.
Lisa's going to be pissed.
Yes, that was my thought. I was like, oh, Lisa's going to be upset because I didn't figure everything out. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I am going to go back ready to tackle all of these things. And this is not the time to do that. I'm all hurried from the office, from this transition, from all of these things. And it was a retreat, and it was just rich. It was wonderful. And if you have an introverted, tendency like me, it was just what the doctor ordered. Yeah. So I highly recommend it for anybody.
You guys aren't going to believe me since you mentioned introverted, and we all know I'm extroverted. I did a silent weekend. I was at Taizé in France this is over a decade. I mean, this is right before I started my business. So I lived in England for a year, and before I came home, I was in the summer before I came home. I spent a week at Taizé, which is also a monastery, but it's open to the public if people have never heard of it. They're really known for their music. It's a specific thing. But they have a house there then that people who are, because in the summer, it's like packed full of high school. I mean, your old world, David, like high school youth groups, everything. It's kind of chaos. It's like not quite what you're looking for. And so I spent one of the weekends there and nobody, of course, I was there by myself. No friends or family or nobody else who knew me was there. So everybody swears up and down that I clearly didn't actually do this because they can't picture me being quiet for 72 hours.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because, and maybe this is just that like I'm particularly looking at this right now. So I'm getting myself involved in a lot of these conversations, but it is so countercultural to what we are surrounded by, particularly in the US. Yeah. I think it's present in Europe, but I don't think the urgency and the productivity and the go, go, go demand is quite the same. I'm obviously speaking with, a more of an Italian lens, which is like very La Dolce Vita. So it's so hard though to shift our brains. Like I'm not succeeding at this yet. I'm hearing it. I'm reading about it. I'm like logically convinced of all of it, but like how to actually implement surviving as a small business and also creating space and also not rushing and being ruthlessly, what was the phrase?
Eliminating hurry.
Yes.
Ruthless. I'm writing this down. Yes. Like it's just against everything the world is telling us we have to do to survive, not even succeed or hit goals or whatever, but just to survive as a small business.
Right. It is a little bit of rose-colored glasses, but we are coming at our work from a faith-based, point of view where it's like, it's not going to all depend on how good or creative or clever or artistic I am or we are. Like, that's impossible. I can't, that bar just keeps rising. I can't do that. The stress of that, like just social media alone, just taking social media, like to create the cleverest, cutest, whatever, the trend-setting reel. Like, I don't have that. But what I can do, I can show up every day. I can be consistent. I can't be like, whatever creative. I don't have the capacity for that, but I can be consistent. So the idea is kind of like you're faithful in the small things and we trust God with the big things, but if I try to take those big things on and to micromanage or control that, I end up becoming a mess. I become anxious and I am not pleasant to be around. Like even just a couple weeks ago, we quit. David's like on this high after the Science and Solitude retreat. He does not have a fire in his belly. And I like, fire in the belly. We gotta go.
Like we gotta go.
Go get 20 orders today. And he's like, oh, it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. And I'm like, it's not that
take the
beautiful
girls
of a day.
for a walk, so it's a balance.
We got stuff to get done.
But then I was like, okay, I'm in a scarcity mindset. Like Zipporah's thing. I'm in a scarcity mindset that it says, if I am not doing enough, then we will not have enough. And it's not true. Because, 2 years now? I got really, really sick. I had a 6-month-old baby. I was pumping for my sister who just adopted. And we just started the first week of school. And my appendix ruptured. And I spent,
oh my gosh,
5 days in the hospital or something like that. And then we got home and 3 days later, the entire family got COVID. And I didn't.
And then she had a horrible reaction from the antibiotics.
Full body rash.
Yeah.
I didn't move for a month and a half. I was not well. It's moments like that. My mom was like, okay, so you can come. I was so frustrated because I am pent up energy, but no muscles to do it. I couldn't make, I couldn't teach, I couldn't cook, I couldn't clean. I could not be productive, which is where I found all my worth. I was only worth something if I was producing. And now I had no ability to produce, which meant I was worthless. I'm not contributing anything. And my mom's take, I was so mad about the fact that it's the first week of school and I can't even get my girls, doing what they need to be doing. And we tutor with our homeschool co-op and I couldn't tutor and I couldn't do all of these commitments I had signed up for. And she's like, you can either come out, you can't rush healing. You can either come out the other side of this having burned all your bridges and ruined your relationships with the people you love, or you can slow down and come out the other side more connected, more committed to the things that are important to you, with more clarity than you did before you had this experience. And I was like, it was one of those slap in the face moments where I was like, oh, I choose that. I choose whether or not I fight against this moment for my life, and I become bitter over this moment, or this could be the catalyst for one of the greatest resets in my life. And the truth that I realized from that was like, my value is not based on my production. As a potter, yes, production is important. Creativity is important, but my value is not based on that. It is something I produce, but it's not my value. And I think that separation, that stepping back and thinking, oh, I could be dead right now and leave David a widow with 5 children. Widower with 5 children. Like, was working harder worth that? No. Like, was pushing myself more worth that? No. And nobody would want that, So, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So just to come full circle, like we don't know exactly what wonderful balance is. Yeah. I don't know if it's out of the book or we've heard it or something. I mean, hurry and all of these things crop up in your life, kind of like weeds in a garden. It's not like, oh, there, worry's gone. Or hustle is gone and we've cleared that out. Good. No, it's like it's always going to crop up in different ways and different things. It's to constantly reevaluate life. Okay, are we keeping the main things?
Is what we're doing getting us where we want to be?
Because I think no matter what, I think we could get a successful pottery business going. And if we're both working 80 hours a week towards that, that doesn't reach our goal, which was to structure a small business, a pottery small business around the family life that we feel is important and that we're called to. And so that's what.
Well, you've done the thing that I only figured out having done one business first and gone too far, and then creating a new business going, okay, I've learned these lessons the hard way, so now I'm going to do this differently, which is you have built your life first and your business is supporting that life. Right. And I think what so many of us do and what kind of hustle culture, bro, tech startup, whatever, the Gary V's of the world are very like, you push and you sacrifice everything for that first year, for that first 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is, because you got to get it off the ground. And then you can relax and enjoy the whatever. But what they don't tell you is that once you get into that habit, you don't pull back.
You don't all of a sudden become healthy.
Yeah.
No, because your goals change and you want to do the next thing and then you move on. And so you just keep pushing. And it's like, and also half the time the people telling you those things have entire teams of full-time staff who are doing all of the actual implementation. But that's a different.
Or are so healthy themselves. That's like the person who's like, I'm on marriage number 7. And let me tell you the secret about marriage. It's like, no.
Right. Or like, but I can tell you how to run a business. So don't worry. And it's like, yeah.
Well, and I think the big thing for us is defining our goals and like, what does success look like? Like if we were talking to a couple who didn't have kids and were trying to run a small business, success might look different for them versus us, and that's okay. Like success doesn't have to look the same for everyone. Our success happens to look very countercultural.
And I think the fact that we're starting this, I would say later in life. I mean, I keep telling the girls, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. Come on. But the fact
I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm still older than both of you, so we're gonna ignore. We'll cut that part from David's.
The fact that we have 5 children does battle against that because part of me is like, yeah, let's just take the next year and nose to the grindstone and think of where we could be.
I mean, there is a financial reality to the fact that you have 5 children.
That has to happen. But the thing that pulls me back is the fact that we have 5 children and they're 13, 11, 8, 2, 4 and 2, 1. Forgot one there. They're only
not that she'll have middle child syndrome at all.
Oh, it's bad.
There's no do-overs on these years that we have with them, and so that does pull me back from that ledge of like, no, let's dive into that hustle culture and just bust it.
Well, no, but 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we were all about the hustle. We were all about just work a little harder, sacrifice a couple more hours. I was consistently staying up till 3 a.m. making. He drives him crazy because he has to have 8 hours of sleep. He's like a baby.
I try to. Well, I don't think I have for 13 years.
You try.
I try to.
Versus me, nobody needs me at 3 a.m. in the morning. People are like, oh, that's so unhealthy. I'm like, but do you understand? It's silent. Nobody needs me.
And every mother said, amen.
Like,
Exactly. I was like, I'm pretty sure I can think of a lot of people who understand.
I understand that it's unhealthy, but you don't understand how much it gives me. Like, it gives me way more than the sleep would give me. And he's like, oh, the solution to all your problems is more sleep. I'm like, no, the solution to all my problems is not sleep. But oh gosh, I forgot where I was going with that. But yeah.
You were just saying like 2 or 3 years ago, you were in a very different place. You were pushing, you were hustling. So this is a recent kind of shift.
Right. We thought, we believed that you had to hustle in order to be successful.
Okay, I realize that was a bit of an abrupt false ending here on part 1 of my conversation with the Daults, but we really just never stopped. So I had to rip the Band-Aid off and just pick a spot. There is so much goodness coming up next week. And yes, I do mean next week. For those of you that are following particularly close along and might be counting, normally after 3 new episodes, this one being our 3rd, we have 1 week off, where I send out our monthly free photo tips email newsletter. Now, you can still get on that list at makersplaybook.com/newsletter. But instead of having a free photo tip next week, we are going to have 4 weeks in a row of a new podcast episode, because the following week, on September 6th and 7th, that's the Wednesday and Thursday right after Labor Day weekend for those of you that are listening in the US, in lieu of our monthly photo tip email, I am hosting our free live webinar about the 4 most common Instagram photography mistakes and obviously how to avoid them. Yes, even with your cell phone. It's basically like 4 months of tips all in one. So it's a lot. It justifies having 1 month of a photo tip in an email. It's really huge, and I haven't hosted this webinar since this past January. So it's kind of a big deal. And yes, the timing is on purpose, because it means that you will have all of this information fresh in your brain just before we dive headfirst into crazy holiday season prep, if you aren't already there. I want this year to be the year your shop listings don't take you days. I want this holiday season to be the year you sell loads of pots and also get sleep. So come save yourself a seat for the webinar at makersplaybook.com/Instagram-photography. I know it's a little long. makersplaybook.com/Instagram-photography. I know it sounds silly that you have to save your seat for something that's free, but that's just the business model of webinar hosting companies. So my hands are tied there. Yes, seats are limited, even if they're free. So one more time, in case you still had mud all over your hands, the link to save your seat is makersplaybook.com/Instagram-photography. Be sure to also share that URL with your other maker friends once you save your seat so they can have their own spot. I'll also make sure, of course, that there is a link in the show notes so you can click on the description of this episode in whatever app you're listening to and click the link directly to sign up instead of worrying about typing that whole URL in somewhere. I am so excited to get this going. There's always so many aha moments for makers. Again, even if you're using just your cell phone. Don't worry, I got your back. Being able to provide free resources like this webinar and, of course, this podcast is made possible because of the amazing makers that are members inside of our community, as well as thanks to our sponsor, Amico.
Hi, I'm Kara, content creator and Facebook wrangler for Amico Brand, bringing you ideas and support for your creative adventures every day. This week's episode is brought to you by Amico Brand. Find your favorite Amico glaze at your local distributor. Happy glazing!
Audio post-production of this podcast is made possible by help from Christy Kotzfan. with promotional material assistance from Queenie Maliki. The Maker's Playbook podcast is recorded on the original homelands of the Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee people, where the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present. Until next time, my friends, go get back to making your dreams a reality. Because together, we've got this.